Hello, my name is Tori Smith, and usually I do a daily report on the child trafficking operation being run by DARPA and the CIA. And almost every legal agency is involved. And one thing lately that keeps coming up in people as they pull up their DNA and start reading information out of it, which I've been doing for several years now. The first time I saw DNA was in 2009. And then in May of 2010, I started identifying the multiple species persons, or multiple species people. And it just completely fascinates me. Well, recently there were a group of men that came in that were 5 species people. One of them I couldn't even identify. Ones that I'm fluent in are ones who've been basically around here on the earth for many thousands of years. The reptilians, the insectians, the dinosaurians, the amphibians, humans, and did I say insectians? It's been a long day. It's always a long day around here. Although the good news is a lot of people got arrested today, and some computers, see, I can't explain how this technology works because I've only experienced it. It's only been involved, really thrust into my life. So when I talk about temporals and whatnot, I just do that from what I see and then what I know to be true and have experienced, and then going off to do my own research. But there's a whole level of weapons and everything that's on the astral level, and then the next one up is the etheric level. Our 5 major bodies, at least we humans, have physical, astral, etheric, mental, and causal. Causal body is where our memories are held. Everything that happens to us is also recorded in our DNA. And if I understand correctly, heaven, this is the 3rd and the 4th dimension, we're the 3rd. And then there's the 5th and the 6th, and the galactics are on the 5th. And the people who've been arrested from Earth had to be taken up to the 5th, and that's where they're being tried, in the 5th dimension. And everything's different there. They say it's like looking at your life through the eyes of an angel. And so, and since I do these child trafficking reports, and it's been really stressful lately, and what's like I was beginning to say was what's really coming up is how sexually aroused these people get when they witness the murders of human children, which to me is absolutely horrific. In January of 2013, I was exposed to the child trafficking operation, and I was raped, and by which I mean anal sodomy, and they used weapons on me and drugs, and I was paralyzed, and really the only thing initially I was able to move was my eyeballs, and then I was able to move my head side to side and see what was going on. And I really cannot connect too much to those memories, because if I do, I have some sort of a seizure. In fact, I blacked it out for a little while. It was a little too traumatic for me to handle, and it came back several months later. In May, when I walked into the kitchen, I'm in the kitchen now, but I came in the door over there, and I just fell back against the door, and I vividly remembered everything. And, most of the time, I really don't think I was in my body, which happens to a lot of anomalous trauma people. They call it anomalous trauma survivors. I don't like to use the word victim, although I've been victimized many times. One of my life themes is survivor. And so, what is so disturbing to me, because they're going through this, and every day, almost, children are raped and murdered, and they do this to sacrifice for Lucifer and Satan. And Lucifer and Satan have been gone since September of 2013. They were part of a group of Dracos from the Alpha Draconis system originally, and there were 1,738 of them. And the last ones to go, like I said, were Satan and Lucifer. That started in May 2012 and went to September 2013. Okay, so my question is, why is this so sexually arousing to watch human children be murdered? And they compete. Most of the times when they murder these children in the child trafficking operation, they compete to see who gets to murder the children. A lot of times CEOs use their corporate accounts and pay $1 million to be able to murder a child. And this is really hard for me to understand as a human being. Well, actually, I'm 97% human, 3% cetacean. I'm what's called a cetacean human. There's about 20,000 of us here on the planet. and which means that I am, my specific type of cetacean is orca whale. I'm part orca whale, basically. Although my life totem animal is rhinoceros, and I kind of really, literally am like a rhinoceros. I've been through so much. They even put snakes in my body. That's so gross. Okay, so let's take a look at the government agencies real quick. As I've been saying for years, I've looked around the CIA because they've so heavily involved themselves with me. There's not a single human that works for the CIA. And then just recently, a couple of weeks ago, I decided, well, you know what, all these FBI agents, like 2 of them came in last week. I looked at the one guy, he had raped and murdered 32 children, and the other FBI agent had raped and murdered 67 children. And then they, hit me in the head with a weapon, and they both sodomized me. And it's horrible. Having these men's penises in your body who've raped and murdered children, it's horrible. And even some of these people, some of these beings, really, worked in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany, which they're trying to pull off now. The FBI, 4 out of 100 employees of the FBI, 4% of the FBI is human. Doesn't that make you feel safe? Not me. In the White House, let's take a look at the White House. 1% of the White House staff is human. So literally 1 out of 100 people on the White House staff are human. The TSA, and I got big problems with the TSA. They have a major underground facility just over the border up here in Michigan. About 60 miles into Michigan. It's real close to Kalamazoo. 8% of the TSA employees are human. And I looked a little bit further, 99% of those 8% of humans are all working at those heavy radiation machines at the airport. And so I did a little further research, and I found that 7 trips through the security of those heavy radiation machines, 7 trips is enough to cause cancer. So you can imagine how, business travelers, I haven't gone to the airport since 9/11. I absolutely refuse to go because I consider the TSA terrorists because they're so heavily involved in raping and murdering children. The Secret Service, United States Secret Service, we all know they are designed to protect the president, vice president, and other filthy low-life criminals. 0% humans. There's not a single human that works for the Secret Service. Department of Homeland Security. This is an agency that is in charge of all the Nazi concentration camps all over America. They call them FEMA something or other. I think it's FEMA Life Liberation Centers. They liberate you from your horrible human life. And the Department of Homeland Security, 2%. 2 out of 100 employees are human. And if you look back, if you remember Janet Napolitano, she is 32% reptilian. And she has 0% sacred. They all have 0% sacred light because they're all involved in this process because they're desperate to try to pull off another World War II. Except, as I say all the time, the Nazis won World War II, and their prize was the United States of America. They all came in here, and they stayed. They're all just in different bodies now. Well, most of them. Every once in a while, you'll find a Nazi war criminal that's still alive, and they're still in their body. But that's extremely, extremely rare. Most of their body, the archons can move souls around in different kinds of people, and most of them. And I looked, I thought, well, I knew who the last human president was, but I thought, well, let me just double check. And it was JFK and Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy were the last humans in the White House. ICE, who I call a child trafficking agency all the time, 6% human. So that's a high number. Like TSA, 6 out of 100 employees at ICE are human. And the NSA, there's no guess there. There's no humans in the NSA. Probably the most evil. And a lot of people don't know how heavily involved in child trafficking they are. But the good news is about the NSA is that Keith Alexander's been arrested. He went out with the 819. And John Brennan from the CIA, he went out with the 819. U.S. Customs and Border Control, 16%, which is like a whopping high number. 16% of that agency are human. And this one, I don't even know who they are. Defense Intelligence Agency, none. There's no humans working at the Defense Intelligence Agency, whatever that is. I've never even heard of it until tonight. And I don't know what it is. The U.S. Drug Enforcement, the DEA, 3% human. 3%, 3 out of 100. the Federal Protective Service, which is another one I've never heard of. I don't know if you've heard of them. I got this list. I was just looking it up on the internet and scanning people's DNA. 7% human at the Federal Protective Service. And the IRS, believe it or not, has 16% human. It's a completely illegal criminal organization. And the IRS has, quote unquote, the criminal investigation because everyone knows they should be, all put in jail because what they're doing is illegal. And there's zero humans working at the IRS Criminal Investigation Service. In the U.S. Marshal Service, there's a whopping 2% humans. 2 out of 100 U.S. Marshals are human. The U.S. Department of Justice. Now this one has a really high figure, 10% humans. So 10 out of 100 employees of the United States Department of Justice, which is like the biggest joke on the planet, because they have nothing to do with justice whatsoever. But they do have a couple humans working there. How about that? The last 6 attorney generals have been 100% reptilian, and they've all been arrested. A lot more were arrested today. Over 7,000 now. And a lot of that's due to your prayers. And people have been saying, remember a long time ago I put out a message and said, let's do a prayer. Thank you, Galactics, for arresting these child traffickers. Well, over 7,000 of them now have been arrested. A bunch more went out today. And boy, are they upset about that. Because one group of reptilians was only here for 14 minutes. That's a sign of the times. 14 minutes. Can you imagine traveling billions of light years to land on a planet, to be there 14 minutes, and then, bam, arrested. Arrested by the Galactics. Isn't that funny? Who most of the Galactics here are human. There's humans populate 40% of the galaxy, Milky Way galaxy, and there's 56 species of humans. And one of my absolute favorite, well, I love Indians. I love Indians almost all Indians are from the Pleiades star systems. There's 70 star systems in the Pleiades that have colonies of sentient people. And most of the Indians, the Mayans, the Olmecs, the Cherokee, the Navajo, the Lakota, Suwannee, all from Pleiades, Mayan. And Loretta Lynch, she was human, and actually she was selected, not because she was a good attorney, but she was actually selected because of her parents. And if you look at her parents, you'll know why. They're wonderful, wonderful, divine, devoted to the light, beings of light. They're incredibly wonderful people. I've never met them personally, but they just shine very brightly. Loretta Lynch was murdered, and then she was replaced with a clone. And I really feel sorry for her parents because they're really incredible, wonderful people. And 2 of my favorite ones, I never talk about the Coast Guard. And so I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was scanning the Coast Guard, and I found one man. One man in the entire Coast Guard is involved in child trafficking, and he's raped 7 children and murdered one of them in the Luciferian human sacrifices. And I love the Coast Guard. One time, I think it's the only time I've ever fired a gun in my life. A buddy of mine who was a bartender from New Orleans, we were working in South Beach, and he took me to the Coast Guard station right off the MacArthur Causeway. And we went into the firing range, and I shot an AK-47, I believe it was called, machine gun, and a 9mm handgun, and it was a big mistake. There was I don't even think I came anywhere near that target, and there were chunks of stuff coming out of the ceiling and everything. It was such a mess. But the Coast Guard, 61% of the Coast Guard is human. I'm it makes sense because the Coast Guard's not involved in child trafficking except for that one dude. And the Post Office, I absolutely love the Post Office. And they're such hardworking people. The only thing I don't like about the Post Office is I always tell them if it snows more than 8 inches, you should just stay at home. And they don't. They go out anyway. It snows 12, 13 inches, and they've got what are they out doing? Delivering, the mail for people. And 67% people who are employed at the Post Office are human. So my question is, of course we all know the answer. You know what I mean? If the government's conspiring to throw us all in Nazi war camps, Nazi concentration camps, and kill us all, that is why humans have basically been eliminated. That's why one of the reasons why they shot JFK. And if you'd like to do research on that, he was shot by George Herbert Walker Bush and another man called Zbigniew Brzezinski. And his daughter works on CBS News, Amika Brzezinski, and her father had also raped and murdered children, and it was 400 and So it was really high. Last time I checked, it was like 460. I can't seem to get a lock. They probably came in. 467 children he murdered while raping them. So thanks, Mika, for, reminding of us every day that we see your beautiful face on TV. Guess what? My father murdered JFK, and he murdered over 450 children while raping them. Very something to be proud of, Miss Mika Brzezinski. Anyway, God bless your hearts. This has been Tori Smith for the Human Report in our government. Not really our government, though.